Women have been treated as minorities for years because some believe that women were not capable of doing the same types of things as men. The event that started the women's suffrage movement in 1848 started with about 100 people and then separated into two groups, the National Women's Suffrage Association and the American Women's Suffrage Association. The groups actively worked for women's rights, like being treated equally with family responsibilities, being treated equally in education, economically, and politically. Now, women have come a long way from how things used to be. Because of the 19th Amendment, women have been able to vote, get jobs like judges and senators, and much more. But discrimination in sports like soccer and basketball and many others are causing issues, like women being paid 40 times less than the male athletes in the same profession and only having 4% of sports media coverage, and other issues that women still face today. In 1848, the women's suffrage movement was starting, and winning the right to vote became the main topic that women were fighting for. Women like Susan B. Anthony and other activists created organizations like the National Women's Suffrage Association and the American Women's Suffrage Association to make it known to the public what women were fighting for. As the nation began developing, society and the way of life has changed. Early in history, women had little to no rights. For example, women were denied the right to vote, to be involved in politics, and married women could not own property and had no legal claim to money they might earn. The National Women's Suffrage Association had influenced the United States Congress for a constitutional amendment. When it reached the Senate floor in 1886, it was defeated. The organizations, unwilling to give up, decided to try a state-by-state approach towards getting their right to vote. By 1918, 20 states had instated the amendment into their state constitutions, granting women rights to vote. Activists used protest tactics like pickets, parades, and marches as a peaceful way of drawing attention to their cause. Finally, on August 18, 1920, Congress approved the 19th Amendment and granted women their right to vote.
The first event regarding discrimination in sports is Title IX. Many women were becoming aggravated with the unequal situations they were being offered compared to men regarding sports. They weren't able to participate in college sports, they weren't treated with the same facilities or supplies that men had, and they were not given scholarships or paid even close to the same amount that men were being paid. As a result, in 1972, a bill called Title IX was passed. This states that no person in the United States shall on the basis of sex be excluded from participation and be denied the benefits of or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. However, women began to grow impatient with the amount of time it was taking the government to fully approve it. For example, Shirley Chisholm, a Democratic congresswoman back in 2004, stated that in 1972, when the legislation was enacted, President Nixon did not enforce many pieces of progressive legislation. The regulations finally came out 3 years later, and here we are still attempting to see whether or not we can get them implemented." End quote. As soon as this amendment came into full effect, everything grew rapidly. The number of scholarships, participation in sports, increased budgets, elite-level access for women, and even overall health for women. There are several things that had to be taken into consideration when applying Title IX to all areas of sports. For example, football. The NCAA specifically struggled to compromise with women. They got together to discuss the amount of money allotted to sports teams in colleges to pay for whatever they might need to, whether that be for scholarships, facilities, or supplies. Half of them were women's groups, the other were NCAA, men's coaches, and administrators. The women proposed, "We will give you half the money, and you can spend it however you would like, and you can give us the other half. Seems fair. Half and half, that's equal." However, the men freaked out and said that it needed to be 60-40, because men make up 60% of the college students. So it ended at 60-40. Now, though, the women make up 54% of the college students, and they won't change it back. It is still at 60-40. Even after all of this and 30 years of time, there is still a lot of controversy today over how equal this amendment is, actually making it for women. Lots of women feel like they are still not as equal as they should be.
With the continuation of gender inequality, there is a major case of this in the field of media coverage. In our current society, we see that coverage for women's sports is far less than that of men's. Some examples of this is the coverage on sports channels such as SportsCenter and ESPN. On ESPN's flagship program, they dedicated just 2% of its airtime to women's sports in 2014. This is even after the USA-Australia match attracted over 3.3 million viewers, making it the most watched Women's World Cup group stage match and the largest audience ever for a soccer match on Fox Sports. Even after that, women still had minimal media coverage on televised events compared to that of men's. And even with the big outcry for media coverage on television, there's still an imbalance in the coverage for media prints as well. Only 8% of Sports Illustrated articles on average are about female athletes, and these articles are generally shorter in length compared to those written about men. There's even a problem with the way that women are compared to men in the media. One example of this is of Caster Semenya. After running an 800-meter race and beating the world record by 2.45 seconds, Caster immediately fell under gender scrutiny amid reports of her elevated testosterone levels and the aggrieved charges of fellow runners. This led into an investigation into her and sexual identification tests, which revealed that she was intersex. The problem with this story is while it was going on, we have not challenged Michael Phelps' advantages in the water as being unfair due to him having Marfan syndrome, which allows him to bend his body and give him an unfair advantage in the water. This compares by complete contrast to the way the media ran to see if Caster had some sort of genetic advantage due just to her looks. One of the most prevalent problems today that people see regarding equality in sports is women's pay versus men in the same sport. Every sport, whether that be tennis, soccer, or basketball, deals with a major wage difference, and recently in the past few years, the women's soccer team has voiced their opinions regarding discrimination. Other teams, for example, the U.S. women's hockey team, had led these problems as well. The hockey team boycotted their discrimination, and they got approval to change some of the problems with the help of a men's hockey team supporting them. Unlike the U.S. women's soccer team, who was trying to do the same thing, just not through a boycott, however, they have absolutely no support from their male counterparts. The women's soccer team began to voice their opinions, and although the process has been extremely slow, many things have changed or are going to be changed. Improved travel accommodations, increased base pay, support for pregnant women and mothers, and per diems that are equal to the ones that the men get. What's ridiculous, though, is that none of these are fully practiced and they're slowly being implemented into a few sports. The U.S. women's soccer team, for example, is still extremely discriminated against. For example, according to Gillian White, her facts say that for getting booted in the round of 16, the men's team was awarded $9 million by the FIFA. For winning the World Cup, the women's team took home $2 million. How is that possible? The women have already won several World Cups comparably to the men, and they're being awarded less than 4 times the amount for winning the World Cup versus the men for losing in the first round. Even comparing the best of the best athletes comparison has ridiculous disproportions. Cristiano Ronaldo is the world's highest paid athlete with an earnings reported to be more than $88 million, including lucrative sponsorship deals and endorsements. By comparison, the highest paid female football player, Alex Morgan, earns about $2.8 million. This discrimination in pay, as said earlier, is not only happening in soccer world though. This is why people such as government and activist groups need to start pushing these changes to make a difference.
For years, women have been declaring to be treated as equals in our society. Although women have come a long way, there are still issues that need to be paid attention to. There are many ways women have fought for their equality. When the Title IX law was passed, that helped give equal rights in athletes and educational purposes. The 19th Amendment was a great breakthrough that led to women being able to vote and ended discrimination at voting polls. Media has made a huge effects on society throughout the years. And for women, media has been discriminating women's sports in ways such as an unequal coverage for sports on sports channels. After the ups and downs in the fight to end women's suffrage, these events still bring us to where society is now and how we can move forward in fully getting women's equal rights.
In order to solve these problems regarding equal pay in sports, there's a lot of buffer room to transfer money from the men to the women. For example, the NCAA football disagreement discussed earlier regarding Title IX shows how you can make money more evenly spread out. In this article, the author believes that they need to boycott playing in games until they get paid the same, or they implement a pay transparency so women are able to see what the male counterparts are earning in comparison. Females should also get more sponsorships. Finally, instead of the woman doing everything, the people in charge of them should try to figure out ways to generate more revenues and be able to distribute it accordingly. The solutions for media, though, are very quite simple. All there has to be is increase in the amount of televised time that women sports have, and this also includes the amount of time that they are shown in print. Doing this will create more equality within the media coverage and may also improve their outlook within the entire media. In conclusion, ordinary citizens should start respecting, if not try to get involved in women's sports by watching them. The government should also finish implementing laws to deal with the unequal pay, media portrayal, and other controversies regarding gender inequality in sports.